Welcome to the JALTCALL podcast. This recording is from the PanSIG Conference 2025 JALTCALL Forum. In this forum, the panel members Louise Ohashi, Gilbert Dizon, Nikan and Obari Hiroyuki discussed the issues of applying AI in language education. In the first part of the forum, each of the speakers gave a short presentation on their main focus to introduce themselves. And now we join them in part two as they discuss questions posed by Michael Hofmeyr, the moderator for the day. Enjoy the show.
Based on what the speakers talked about today, I'm sure many of you can relate to these situations in your classrooms as well. If you're language teachers, or most of you I assume are language teachers, we've all encountered situations where a student hands in a piece of work or gives a presentation and it just seems a little bit too good to be true, right? Or too good to be authentic. I've had that with my speaking classes as well. It was really from 1 year, the students were, in the 1 year I taught the course, the first year I taught the course, the students would come in front and give their presentation, and it would just be sort of misu darake, right? Like there'll be lots of issues, lots of little grammatical things that are incorrect, but you had a good feeling, well, this is the student's original work. And then the next year, maybe suddenly there were a few students who were suspiciously accurate and perfect grammar in their presentations, and the next year it's like everyone suddenly had it was just a very higher level, right? And it was clear that the students were using AI tools to assist them in their work. And Nikan, you talked about this, and you specifically developed a course to help your students use AI for their academic writing, right?
It was a training program.
It was a training program. So what do you think then, when you train the students to use AI to assist them in their writing, what do you think is the most important advice that you can give your students?
I would say to my students, I would always say, you're very lucky to be a student at this era, because when we used to be students, it used to be different. And so you have all the technology that you want at your fingertip, but try to use it to your advantage, be ethical about it, and don't let it do the job for you. So it's important to be ethical and not to over-rely on AI tools. So I think in case of my students, when I thought about it, I think transparency was a key for us. We did that training program with my colleague, a good friend of mine, Isabel. And then we tried to have this honest conversation with the students right from the beginning, so we know, just like that the tools exist, so it's we also know that it's convenient and efficient, but you should use it in a way to support your learning. And we are here to show you how. So I think it's important for students to have some kind of critical awareness of the skills they might lose as the result of over-reliance on AI. For example, I can talk a little about what has happened to myself as an example. So I've noticed that a few times I double-check the spelling of certain words. So it wasn't the case 10 years ago. A part of that might be due to aging, but it's also because of my over-reliance on tools like Grammarly and autocorrection and to do the job for me. So it's for work, because most of us are constrained by time. It's like a trade-off. We would always neglect that. But when it comes to learning, it's different. And then I think when we did that, as I said, we were not even sure if we were doing the right thing. because there were no policies in place, and we were scared of being accused of something we didn't know was right or wrong. So we developed a set of guidelines. We did that AI integration in the class. We exposed the students to model essays. We had this discussion, we gave them feedback, and we watched them implement those feedbacks in the class. And I think that in turn maybe created some sense of mutual trust and accountability in our students. Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much for sharing your
if
experience there.
it took me long to
No, it was perfect. Okay, so let's move on to Gilbert. So you introduced a lot of different research projects that your research is very varied, right, on different aspects of call and also different aspects of AI. And so you've been looking at chatbots and student interaction with chatbots since before the big generative AI boom, or the big chat, before ChatGPT came out. You worked with Alexa was the first chatbot.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm curious to see then over that timeline, what have been your findings with your research? Do you feel like students' attitudes towards interacting with these bots have changed over time? Can you maybe elaborate a little?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, I do feel as though, I mean, obviously ChatGPT, Gen AI, it's all new. But in terms of the actual research findings, it actually mirrors a lot of what the previous research says. You know, they may have positive perceptions about it. It's useful in language learning. However, you know, Nikan mentioned there's always the risk of over-reliance, and obviously, you know, academic integrity is a primary issue that students, you know, need to be aware of. So I haven't noticed that in terms of like students' attitudes. They're not necessarily more positive nowadays. They're just more aware of these types of technologies. So when I did those earlier studies with Alexa, I gave them like those smart speakers because they had no idea, like they weren't aware of those technologies. And I mean, I think the first study, it wasn't even released in the Japanese market yet. I had gotten it as a Christmas gift, honestly. From my older brother. So like, yeah, I guess it's kind of random. Yeah, like the reason why I got interested in chatbots in the first place was because like my daughter, she was one years old at the time, and she would be talking with Alexa, and it would just like it was like so fun for her. So that kind of sparked my interest. Like, how can I use it with my students? So yeah, I mean, initially when I was doing research with Alexa and chatbots, students had no idea. So for them, it was super novel. Like, you know, talking with the AI, they didn't realize that was even a possibility at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe many of us can relate to that story. My daughter likes speaking to Siri as well, and I find her sitting in a room, you know, like having long conversations with Siri. Don't know if that's...
What is interesting though, because with Alexa, all of those commands that they give is stored in the cloud. So I can actually re-listen to like those commands, those things that my daughter had said when she was like 1 with Alexa. So it's kind of
right.
like keeping those memories.
Okay, so it's like an auditory photo album almost, or memory album. What are the most popular tools in the education context that students use to practice language?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done, as I said, you know, research involving ChatGPT. For my study, I think there was like 350 students around there from 3 different universities, and at that time, maybe only 25% of them had used ChatGPT. I know, yeah, Louise, she mentioned she did a study with a much larger.
When was this data collected?
We collected it fall 23.
Okay.
So, I mean, that was like basically a year after ChatGPT had been released. So, I mean, some students were aware, but maybe it's not quite the same as now, whereas I feel like nearly all students now would at least have heard of ChatGPT and Gen AI.
For me, it was really last year when I felt like when I just felt like now it's like moved past that critical threshold, and now the majority of students have just started using it. And either I see them with it, you know, planning their speeches out. They have ChatGPT open, and they ask you to translate little bits and pieces. Or sometimes you have the more troubling case where a student just reads off the script and you can hear it was just all generated.
Yeah. So I think even with students nowadays, I feel as though machine translation is probably I would say the most popular tool, because it has a really clear use case. You know, they put in input and output comes out. It's quite easy for them. You know, if they use Gen AI or some ChatGPT, they need to do a little bit of thinking on their own, unless they're just simply typing in like answer this question. But I mean, it involves a bit more work, whereas it's just it's a clear use case if they're using machine translation.
And then maybe since we're talking about ethical issues and issues of research or academic integrity, maybe I should ask this question to the whole group. But your experiences or your ideas on the ethical issues. I know Gilbert, you wrote a chapter on ethics, right? In the
Yes.
AI in this book, and you've also written Louise about ethics. And maybe the two of you want, or maybe Louise, you haven't. You haven't given your opinion yet.
Okay,
what are the main issues, ethical issues that we need to be
Probably
aware
the
of?
first thing that comes to teachers' minds is, plagiarism, AI-gerism, if you want to call it that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because we also need to look at what the model has been fed, because that tells us about the inbuilt biases that become part of the learning materials that we're using. If you type in, teacher, or doctor, you're going to get somebody of a certain gender, somebody of a certain ethnic background. And when you get stories that are created, if you're like making ER materials for your students, or if they're co-creating them with ChatGPT, they're going to produce certain stereotypes because this is what it was trained on. So we've got to think about the inbuilt biases and make students aware of it. And also the privacy issues. Where does the data go? Do students know to go to the settings? Just this week I had my students dabbling with ChatGPT for the first time, and the first step was showing them the settings. And some of the students have used ChatGPT before. They have no idea that their voice is used for training and how to go in and turn that off. So I show them that because that's my responsibility as an educator when I'm introducing these tools to students. And also the environmental impact, which is something I thought from the beginning would become an issue, and it's becoming a bigger issue more quickly than I was even imagining. People are starting to publish more and more about this in the mass media, and what can we do instead? Should we be using small language models in device for certain things? Rather than the larger language models when we have specific needs. But at this point, most of us don't know what we need to do with different models and what kind of impact they have. And these are going to be responsibilities between governments and AI companies, but the push will come from the general population. So there are things to think about as well. And then finally, something that came up in the news just recently is students suing their professors for using AI to create materials. So this is the other side of it. And actually in that study I told you about, the 2,500, that was an issue that I investigated in that study with 2,500 Japanese students. So, when I do publish that, or if you want slides from my previous presentation, you can find a little bit about what Japanese students do think about teachers using ChatGPT for material creation, for assessment, for feedback.
What do they think?
I'm going to show you the slides later.
That's
They're more open to it than the students in the media at the moment in America.
Okay.
Yeah. But transparency is the issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that students don't want teachers creating materials, but it's not okay to say, don't use it to our students and then go and use it ourselves to do things. So, yeah.
Practice what you preach.
Well, exactly.
Nikan, did you have a comment?
Oh, no, actually I was listening, and I was also thinking as an educator, I would think about the limitations that we have in terms of detecting plagiarism, or whether we should, it's time for us to redefine the concept of plagiarism when it comes to using AI.
Yeah.
And also digital divide. So being an instructor myself, I always do to explore and use AI within my capacity and resources. But I think digital divide is also an issue because like some of the apps and tools out there, they're not for free. We have so many amazing apps, but you need to pay for monthly or yearly subscription. So when we're choosing or assigning a certain app or tool in the class, we should be aware of that in order not to create a digital divide among the students. And yeah, I do agree with Louise. It's always good to check the user privacy policy of different apps and tools when you're considering to use one in the class.
Okay, and then, sorry,
Yeah.
can I just maybe for Obari sensei or Louise sensei, can I ask you, you talked about the different or the strong points of AI and how AI can help, and you said AI is best at exploiting knowledge or information, and humans are best at exploring, and then it brings up a lot of teachers and a lot of professionals in other fields are a little bit worried maybe about the future of their careers, right? Or will AI be able to, do all of this? Will AI take over all of the expertise? Will AI be able to be a better tutor and a better listener and a better advisor than I am? What do you think are the implications for the future of
I think
teaching?
how many people do believe in the singularity? Sooner or later, singularity will be coming, In that case, what makes us human? We have to really think about it. And my opinion is just we have to discern what the student can do and what the student cannot do. So we have to, use a sort of a zone of professional development, ZPD. And I think many top-notch companies, CEO, unless the company introduces AI, also DX, company will be bankrupt in 10 years. That's why the major companies now, they decided to use or introduce AI and the Copilot or Claude and the GPT and other things. So right now, I think we have a responsibility to teach a sort of a core skills for AI and the digital literacy, and also how to mitigate the hallucination. Those two are very important nowadays. We have to teach the AI, and I'm teaching ChatGPT, Copilot, and Perplexity, all kinds. And we now focus on the sort of AI agency. The AI agency is far advanced than the prompt engineering. They can make a guess, they can empower. You see, and so we have to catch up, and also we have to know how to deal with that kind of stuff. And as for the AI digital literacy, and we have to know the technical proficiency, mastering the use of digital devices, software, and the AI tools. And then the information literacy, finding, evaluating, and using digital information responsibility. And then ethical awareness, understanding ethical impact of using AI technologies. And then critical thinking, questioning the reliability and impact of digital outputs. But as far as critical thinking is concerned, we humans are focused on only physical aspect, but there is more to it as far as we humans are concerned, spiritual mind and body and things like that. So I think that's where the science and theology, that kind of concept should come in to talk about, we can deepen the sort of concept of a human being.
Okay.
Yeah, and then once more, what are the strategies to mitigate AI hallucination? That's also the very important concept. First one is a source verification, and we have to cross-check AI content with reliable sources. And then second one is the contextual analysis, ensure the responses are relevant to the prompt. And third one is a fact-checking tools. I think there are several fact-checking tools, whether it's false or not. That's why I use automated tools to validate AI claims, and then the human reviews. So maybe at the university level, if you are measuring in economics, more or less, AI would give some answer in the field of economics, but economics major have to tell whether this AI's answer is right or not. So that we have to really educate the student in their particular field, AI literacy plus their specialty.
So I think these tips that you gave are maybe very relevant for the students, right? What they need to learn to be employable in the market, where in companies to use AI, but also for us as researchers and academics, right? And as teachers, we need to
continuous monitoring.
Confidence monitoring.
Yeah. So I think ChatGPT is not enough. I mean, we have to learn how to use variety of AI applications, AI agent and things like that.
And we're going to see that develop in the years to come as well as the technology develops. Just very quickly before I open up the floor to the audience, Louise, you promised to tell us a little bit about your take on conversational AI literacy. So did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, and I'd just like to show you something along with this. Basically, so in that encyclopedia entry that I mentioned to you before, I've really defined conversational AI literacy in our context of L2 education as the ability of language learners and educators to effectively interact with conversational AI systems, and to do this across different modalities for second language learning and instruction. Now, you might think at the beginning, when ChatGPT first came out, that this was going to be something that was just text-based. But what we're finding is that technology is changing so much that we can't even define it, and we have to be aware that we're going to have to keep redefining it. We're not going to be able to just come up with one kind of answer to this. So I think that what we need to do is think about these 5 different competencies, and firstly is functional, next linguistic, strategic, critical, and ethical. So on a functional level, do students and teachers know how to operate these things? Yeah, we learn how to use them. Yeah, and then in terms of linguistic, well, do we have the prompting skills, or the coercing the information out of it skills, or control skills to actually get what we want? And that's the second thing. And then in addition to that, we need to think about strategic use. So are we as teachers and our students using it to do the things that we actually want to achieve? So choosing the right tools to do the right tasks and making sure that they actually match. So evaluating. We might find that ChatGPT is not the right tool for the task that we want to do. So we've got to be reflective about that. And then we're drawing on our critical evaluation skills along the way there, but we've got to assess the quality, the relevance, the accuracy of the content. And we need to teach students how to do that, and we need to learn how to do that ourselves. And I went through this process with students in a course called AI and L2 education. And it was a 1-semester course. And I went through many of these steps with my students and had them produce projects where they actually selected AI after having some modules, learning about different types of AI, identifying their learning needs, choosing a tool to do a certain task, evaluating it, doing it 3 weeks in a row as a group project, outside of class and inside of class, and then writing a report on it to really critically evaluate what they've done. Very, very insightful for me as a teacher to see their progress and the things that they had difficulties with. And as I said before, we need to think about academic work. So of course, institutional policies, you might not have one that's very clear. You might be in the position where your official policy is ask your teacher, after saying in a really nice way that there's good points and bad points. So just basically be in many, many policies something that says ask your teacher. But what if you're the teacher and you don't know what to do? Well, that's when the teacher communities comes into it. Talk with your colleagues, engage with other people, figure it out. And we also need to think about the student side. So students may agree to their data being input by us, but we have to think first before we do that. We can't just take a student's work and put it in there. And then we also need to think about the environmental impact. So I don't know if you know this, but these days, if you connect ChatGPT to the internet, you can actually have a video chat in real time. So it can see and talk to you in real time. So that's something that wasn't out, but that was predicted when this came out. What's going to be the next thing? That's what I'm really wondering, because I'm not of the opinion that we'll be dealing with the singularity anytime soon, but there's another step that's coming soon. And just yesterday, Codex was released, and so now OpenAI's made something that can do coders' jobs and create the code and check for bugs simultaneously. It came out yesterday. That's going to change a lot of things. Yeah.
May I say something?
If it's less than 30 seconds, because I want to have time for questions.
You see, now prompt engineering is out of date,
Right, it's more iterative.
That's right, yeah. So we have to aim at the sort of a multi-agent and then spatial computing, integrating the physical aspect, also the virtual aspect. It will be a sort of integration.
Okay,
future, yeah.
so we're going to see some big changes
Yeah, yeah,
still
yeah.
to come, right? We've got only 5 minutes for questions. Any questions from the audience?
Sorry, so I'll do quick. To Nikan, actually. And after you did the training, did you actually give them a take-home essay assignment?
No.
And you did not?
So, sorry, yes, yes.
Quick question and answer. Next one. Yes.
Something about the ethics that was not brought up that I want to ask all of you about is the idea of where they get their trading data, because a lot of these companies have taken from creatives without any form of consent. Now I know in Japan that has been decreed legal, which is why you're seeing a lot of AI companies migrating here to Japan. But in the EU and the States, there are ongoing lawsuits to kind of figure out the legality of that. I'm not so much concerned with the legality as the morality. Because I feel, as educators, if we are engaging with and using these tools that are based on what essentially, in my opinion, equates to theft, we are essentially signing our consent like, yes, this was perfectly fine, and it's cool. We can, just take whatever we want now. So I want to kind of hear, like, how you feel about this, and if you're more positive about it, like, how would you convince me to feel better about it? Because where I'm sitting, the whole thing kind of seems built on a foundation of just bad things.
So it's like copyright infringement is the issue? Or?
It's the idea that all of this work was taken without any consent.
Which word? You mean?
If we can just try to relate it
generated
to
by
education,
AI?
right?
Yeah, no.
No, you mean like
the
training
data
on
part, the
newspaper
whole-
articles?
Yeah, so like right now in the States, the New York Times is suing ChatGPT because they took their articles to train their model without their permission.
So the counterpoint with that, but anyone can go and, if you want to think like, oh, hey, I want to be a journalist. Well, so one way to be a good journalist is to read a lot of journalism. And, well, I think they had access to it somehow. They didn't
My
break into the
contention
New York
is that
Times.
you are not a company then using that to train this groundbreaking machine that's going to change everyone's lives and negatively affect the people writing those newspaper articles.
Yeah, so it's a question of power. A single person, you can read Tolkien, and then you can go write Game of Thrones or something like that, and be like, okay, well, I understand these different authors' style. I read them, and now I'm going to think about how I want to sound when I write. And you can't say, well, hey, don't do that, because that's what people do.
But you are not a machine. You
But
are not a
that's
product.
more.
Can we maybe we have time for one or two more short questions about? Can we have a question about education or the
Can I
classroom?
real quick get something
Yes.
from one of the panelists on that?
Does
I
anyone
really
have
appreciate that.
Opinion on this topic?
You go ahead.
I agree. It was robbery, and there's no other way to put it. If you take something and you don't pay for it, and you don't consider privacy and get consent from people, then in research we would never do that, right? We need to get consent. It needs to be informed, and that wasn't done. As to how we deal with that now that it's become so dispersed in society and integrated into so many things, that's a harder thing to deal with. So morally, I'm against that, but practically, I am a very small dot in a very big universe, and these kind of things have really become integrated into so many facets of life that, as you said, the New York Times will take it up directly with companies, and I think that's where government and large corporations have a bigger role.
Thank you.
Time for one more short question?
I'm at the end of my career, thank God, because I feel for the younger generation, because what we've heard valid comments by the forum members is that a list of things as teachers we should be doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sitting here, yeah, but I have a first year writing class with 28 students in it. How am I going to, what's the first step? Where do we go? And I see a lot of it, we are reacting to things, but we're not being very proactive on the next step. How can any suggestions we can give for teachers who are just touching this to not feel a bit guilty about not being able to follow all of the suggestions that are being made?
Actually, I think when it comes to choosing ChatGPT, if you have a writing class, I can tell that from my experience. I'm a little reluctant to use ChatGPT with my freshman students because they still need a set of fundamental skills. They need to develop those critical skills and what Louise said, ethics for the right use of ChatGPT. But if you have like more advanced students, I think you can take it you can start using it for, I think Obari sensei said, brainstorming ideas, helping students brainstorm ideas. I did that with my students. They chose a broad topic and they had to write about one side of it. So I encouraged them to use ChatGPT to get those broad topics narrowed down, to help them with just generating ideas and then select some of those ideas. It's just a lifesaver for both the teachers and the students. And then they can take it from there, start drafting and just researching, developing their ideas. Yeah.
All right. I think, unfortunately, our time is up.
Okay, thank you so much.
So, yeah, I'd just like to thank all of our 4 great speakers today.